Welcome to the PJ Show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Brad and John, they're the ones to follow. Yeah, ready for the ride. It's the PJ Show.
John, we are in double digits this morning. Double digits. You know what that means?
I think it means that we're 4 days away from Flag Day.
No.
Isn't that what it means?
No, it means it's June 10th. We're not in single digits anymore. It is June 10th, and it is a Tuesday. So happy it's Tuesday, John. John's never heard that before. There's 2 days of the week that you can be so happy. One's on Tuesday, one's on Thursday. Spell it out, S-H-I. So happy it's Tuesday. That is John Combest. He's the guy that puts together this amazing website, and it's interesting because of the fact that, what do you call that, where like you eponymously call your, isn't that the term?
Yeah, like when a singer names an album after themselves.
Right. John eponymously named his website after himself. But he had to do a little bit of computer lingo there, where it's not just like John Combest website. It's johncombest.com. It's amazing how that works. He's done this for over 23 years, puts together this website, which gives all this interesting information. And I have some questions for John this morning, because John knows all this stuff because he's put it on his website. So what we do is we start the show off with this guy. Comes into the studio, we bring him out of the grave, and we set him up in the studio, put a microphone in front of him, and we say, "Sir, what's your name?"
I'm Casey Kasem.
And what do you do, sir?
Now on with the countdown.
He counts them down, and we start off with...
In third place.
You know, you started today, Brad, by talking about double digits. If you add 10 and 4, you get 14, which is Flag Day. But more important math, not frivolous Brad and John show math, but important Missouri legislative math, is going on today in the Whispering Gallery newsletter that's put together by the Missouri Times, Jake Crozen. And the math that Jake does in this morning's Whispering Gallery, can the House get to 82? Can the Missouri House of Representatives get to 82 yes votes on the stadium bill? Now, Brad, you'll recall toward the end of session, the stadium bill passed pretty comfortably. Democrats were behind the measure, and a number of Republicans, in fact, most Republicans, voted in favor of the stadium measure. Jake goes through and counts the number of Republicans who might have fallen off in the last few weeks, Brad. You know, we've heard on various radio interviews and print newspaper interviews around the state, a lot of Republicans saying that nobody, 0.0 constituents in their district actually support the stadium bill. So Jake goes through and details the type of folks that might be rolling off, so to speak, changing their vote from an initial yes to perhaps a no. Jake also notes two confounding factors here, Brad. In the debate over property taxes, there was a measure, or I should say there is a measure, that would allow local voters to cap tax increases on property tax. Now, most counties were included in that property tax measure, but some counties were not. So Jake also does the math, perhaps you could call it the calculus, of folks in counties that were not included. They might be more likely to roll off as well, to initially support it and then come back this week and vote no. The second confounding factor that Jake points out is that really now a lot of Republicans, including Republicans pushing this bill, are at the mercy of the House superminority leader, Ashley Awney. Will Democrats hop on board and support a stadium plan if they really have no incentive from Republicans to do it? Jake runs through that math. I'd also point out, Brad, a story that you will be uniquely interested in, because Austin Hughley, arguably the best reporter at the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, lays out what the Chiefs and Royals deal could mean for the St. Louis Cardinals. You know, the Cardinals are coming up on the 20th anniversary of the new Busch Stadium. They say it's getting a little decrepit in some spots. And Austin lays out how this Royals and Chiefs bill could actually benefit the Cardinals in a few years. The Cardinals could cash in on some of the bill's provisions when the Cardinals make their upgrades. So a whole lot of stadium talk. I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that State Senator Nick Schroer the brand new chairman of the brand new chairman of the Missouri Freedom Caucus was on Scott Fawn's TWMP Daily yesterday, talking specifically about the stadium deal and things he doesn't like about it. So a whole lot of stadium news, Brad. Can the House get to 82? I think they're going to do it.
John, you called it the Freedom Caucus. I thought it was called the Wingbat Caucus. The Wingbat Caucus. No, that's not who it is.
Now, yesterday, you called Senator Nick Schroer a nutbag. So now, have we moved from wingnut to, or have we moved from nutbag to wingnut?
You know, I have to be honest with you, John. When I hear people use two words, it makes me cringe. One of them is freedom, and one of them is patriot. Because
you don't like either of those.
Well, I think it's to the point where, like, you're wrapping yourself in the flag. I'm a patriot. I believe in freedom. And it's to the point where, you know what? Don't we all, I mean, to a certain extent, don't all of us believe in being a patriot and supporting our country? Well, there's some people that don't. Those people out in L.A., but that's a whole other story. But, I mean, to me, it's like, come on, get over it. Okay.
But hold on, Brad. I was having a conversation via text with your old girlfriend. She called you the patriot because she said your balls were deflated.
Well, that's because I'm a good friend of Tom Brady. Tom Brady always told me to keep my...
And then she admitted she was the one that actually deflated your balls. And I said, that's a little more detail than I need to have here.
Tom Brady always told me you can never have too little air in your balls. That's what he said. Okay, two things. The Post-Dispatch, I saw that headline. I thought to myself, okay, hold on a minute. So is this deal going to directly give them some money out of this deal, which is going to KC and for the Royals and for the Chiefs? Is that what this deal is?
No, but what it does is it sets the groundwork for any project over $500 million. A stadium or a team could come and get a little bit of help, Brad. So as Austin relays in this piece, here's the way that Austin describes it. He says that the bill contemplates essentially using the tax dollars paid by teams every year to pay down renovation loans for up to 30 years. So the Cardinals report paying $25 million in state taxes from their stadium in 2022, which could net a few $100 million for renovations after interest costs are considered. So in other words, the bill is written to benefit any major sports team. And as Nick Schroer pointed out on TWMP Daily yesterday, it could benefit the Battlehawks. It could ostensibly benefit the St. Louis City soccer team, STL City, or whatever the heck they call themselves. So the idea is that what's in place for Kansas City can be in place in the future for any sports team. I think the caveat is Austin lays out in here that they make it very specific. The stadium has to hold at least 30,000 people, and there's other qualifications. So it doesn't give quote taxpayer money to the Cardinals in this bill. It just allows the Cardinals going forward to use the same mechanism to pay down their loans.
John, I have three words for the whole situation. You know what they are?
Yeah, what's that?
Wrong, wrong, wrong. That's what the three words are.
And why is that, Brad?
This is just ridiculous. I mean, like, that would be like, let's say you had a rich friend in Ladue that had like a $10 million mansion, okay? And he went to the state and said, I got this $10 million mansion. It cost a lot of money to keep it up. I want you to give me a tax break. I mean, it's the same thing, isn't it? People go like, well, the whole, and he says, if you don't give me a tax break, I'm going to have a huge helicopter pick up my mansion and move it into Illinois. Okay, fine.
I think the analogy falls apart because that guy in Ladue doesn't employ thousands of people. People don't come from a 4 or 5 state area to visit the guy's house in Ladue and spend money and stay in hotels.
John, when we get off the air this morning, I'm going to text. I heard this on was it at the debate the other night? I think it was, or that thing where all the wingbats got together out there at the Palace in Des Peres. And
wow, they're wingbats now. Okay.
No, they're wingbats. Okay.
Wingbats. Okay.
Okay. And Mark Cox, either he said this on the air, he said, I'm going to text him this morning when I get off the air. He said he has a very reliable economistic source, some guy who's an economist, and he said...
Economistic source. And what did that guy say was the percentage of the Royals' impact on the local GDP, Brad?
Well, the Royals and the Chiefs, less than 1%. Less than
Oh,
one.
wow.
Less
Okay.
than one. That's what he said. And you
Have
talk,
you attempted to, instead of annoying Mark and he won't respond, have you considered Googling it or looking at a reputable source and seeing if he's talked about it on a show?
I have, and I can't find. I Googled that. I tried to find that information, and I could not. So I'm going to see if Mark can just tell me that was Joe Smith, and I can just Google Joe Smith and find out what he said. Okay, my second question is, is the property tax thing intertwined with the stadium deal? Are these two together?
Yeah, and so you're highlighting, Brad, a really important point that Nick Schroer and Scott Vaughn went over yesterday, which is they're coupled together in the bill. And the big argument was about severability. And without boring people to a huge extent here, the idea is if the property tax bill is found to be essentially illegal, if you're saying, okay, we're allowing some people to vote on their property taxes, but not people in other counties, would it negate the entire bill, including stadium stuff, or not? And some folks disagree about that. But you might recall when we talked about this last week, Brad, the idea was that getting that property tax relief piece, or the possibility of property tax relief, was essentially the buying cost, the opportunity cost for Governor Kehoe and legislative leaders to get this done. So they told some senators, look, we'll put this in there. Will you vote for the stadium now? They got a yes, and it passed the Senate.
You know, I didn't listen to the Iron Maiden show this past weekend because they talk a lot about this. Maybe I'll check it out again this Saturday. They might be. Isn't that the name of that show, Iron Maidens?
It is, yeah, and they do a lot of head banging. And, I saw a 93.3, Real Talk 93.3 sticker in my parking lot yesterday, Brad, at the gym. It was awesome. It's good to see local radio advertising.
Well, they're not. Are they on 93.3? I thought they were on 104.1. No, are they on 93.3?
I don't know what 104.1 is, but I know that 93.3 is Real Talk. Yeah, and that's where you can find the Shield Maidens. You know who loves Shield Maidens? A guy in story number 2.
Who's that?
Up a notch to number 2.
You know, Brad, I learned something today from the New York Post that I knew literally nothing about. Did you know, Brad, that a lot of times when you have illegals or other migrants in the United States, they take a bunch of their money and they send it back home, and we don't tax it. Did you know that, Brad?
Yes. Go to any Walmart that's in an area that has a lot of immigrants. They're in there grabbing their money out of the country.
I did not know that. Excuse me. I had never paid attention to that before. Now, in this Trump budget called the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, there's a thing in there called a remittance tax, 3.5% tax proposed from non-citizens in the U.S., or money transferred back to relatives in the migrant's home country. So when Jose gets done with his week of doing roofing or lawn work here in the United States, he sends that money back. Under this bill, 3.5% of that sum, excuse me, would be taxed under this bill. Now, the president of Mexico, you know, she is Claudia Sheinbaum. She says, here's her threat. If necessary, we'll mobilize. We don't want taxes on remittances from our fellow countrymen from the U.S. to Mexico, Sheinbaum warned in a viral clip last week. Well, that didn't sit well with Missouri's own Eric Schmitt. Here's what Schmitt had to say. America is not the world's piggy bank, and we don't take kindly to threats. Here's exactly what Schmitt is proposing, Brad. The House's big, beautiful bill addressed the urgent need for a remittance tax, but we can go further. I'm introducing legislation to quadruple the proposed remittance tax from 3.5% to 15%, he said on X. So I think this is pretty cool, Brad. If Mexico wants to talk tough and this gal wants to say, we're going to mobilize, we're not going to take this sitting down, well, maybe you'll take it laying down. Maybe we'll go from 3.5 in the House bill to 15%.
Interesting. Okay, ready for number 1?
Sure.
The number 1.
At last, Brad, the Trump administration has approved federal disaster funds for the St. Louis area tornado relief. You'll recall over the last few weeks, it's been a popular talking point among the left and among public radio types and public radio listeners that somehow Donald Trump was going to punish St. Louis City for being Democrat. Donald Trump didn't want to help Democrat areas with FEMA money. Well, finally, the Trump administration approved tornado funds from the May 6th tornado. In the previous days, he had approved funds for the March tornadoes that came through. So Governor Kehoe sent the request on May 25th, and the administration has been sitting on it a while. You'll recall, Brad, that Josh Hawley has pointed out that it's actually FEMA's job to get the paperwork together, approve everything, and put it in front of the president. But it seems like that's all off the table now, Brad, because that's a moot issue, I guess you could say, or as morons call it, a mute issue, because Trump has approved the disaster declaration. As you can imagine, Brad, this money is going to be going for a whole bunch of things. Rental assistance for people displaced from their home repair or home replacement. That seems pretty reasonable. Childcare related expenses, medical or dental bills stemming from the tornado. I guess if a strong wind blew out your crown, or personal property replacement such as home furnishings or computers. So obviously we're going to have a lot of fraud and a lot of graft and a lot of scams going on with this, but there will be people who are genuinely helped by this federal money. So finally, Brad, the caterwauling about Trump moving too slowly with disaster funds is off the table.
And it's still up in the air whether the city's going to take, $30 million of the Rams money toward this. That has not gone through the Board of Aldermen yet, has it?
That's correct. I don't believe it has. In fact, you're pointing out another piece that Nick Schroer mentioned yesterday on TWMP Daily. Schroer was talking about the fact that, look, sometimes Democrats have really good ideas. And Kara Spencer, in taking that Rams money that the Jones administration did nothing with and actually using it to help for storm recovery is a pretty good idea. And, when you look back at what Jake Croson wrote in the Whispering Gallery talking about the Rams piece, Jake actually referenced the fact that now that this money has come through, there's a possibility that state lawmakers, when they approved all that storm recovery money last week, there's a possibility in there that once we get a whole lot of FEMA money coming in, that the state could actually claw back that money. So all the money that was set aside to go to storm recovery, it was dependent on whether or not we get FEMA relief. And if we get a ton of FEMA relief, then the state can claw back that money.
Interesting. Okay, lots of stuff to talk about in segment B block. I've got a bunch of things to talk about. I've done some research from yesterday. And, John, you missed the number one story on stlpr.org.
Oh, no. Is it old broke people complaining about KDHX?
Here you go.
Is it a bunch of bums that can't rub two nickels together complaining because a successful business came in and purchased a radio license?
But see, here we go again in the respect that the reason they're a successful business is because they pay no taxes. Or maybe they use the laws of the country to their benefit. And maybe they're successful business people. But you know what? That's enough for some of us to be crabby and mad at them. Are we talking about the Hoffmanns, Brad? Or are we talking about Caleb? Do we really want to talk about the Hoffmanns again?
I don't know what I don't get is, I don't know if you're going to flip-flop on them or if you're still very anti-Hoffman. I think they're purchasing the Washington Missourian. I think that's a pretty significant deal.
I've been chastised by John that when I'm in personal communications with someone on my text, I should not talk about that on the air. And last week, I was in personal communications with someone, and they were telling me, "Oh my God, this is going to be great that the Hoffmanns bought the Missourian in Washington."
Yeah, isn't it awesome?
Oh, that's the way you think, John?
Yeah, 100% what I think, bro.
I didn't know that.
And just think if they partnered with competent business people in Washmo, like a Diane Jones or KLPW, or imagine the kind of media operation David Hoffman could run if he had a paper and reasonable radio stations.
Well, according to the Missourian, there are no other media outlets in Washington. They're the only one, but that's a whole other story. And I will say it this way, having spent maybe too many years in Washington, this is another decline of the royalty of Washington. There is a royalty in Washington which is slowly being eroded, which I think is sort of interesting because of the fact that why is it being eroded? Because of the John Combest people that he loves.
Yeah, people that want to make a dollar, people that want a competent business.
The private
things. Maybe we could get some hobos from KDHX that don't have a circular thing to urinate in. Maybe we could get them to form a group called Love, and they could buy the Missourian, and they can make it a ragtag rinky-dink thing that loses money every year. Wouldn't that be great, Brad?